You know, some people believe the Bible describes a very specific cosmology, one that looks absolutely nothing like the model most of us were taught growing up. So today, let's just take a closer look at the verses themselves and see what picture really starts to emerge.
And listen, we're not just talking about a handful of passages here. This book, 200 Bible verses proving a flat, stationary Earth, actually gathers more than 200 verses that all point to this view. And what's great is the passages are organized by theme, so it gives you a really clear, structured look at what Scripture is saying about the world.
What's so striking about this, though, is that these verses aren't just pulled from one little isolated section of the Bible. No, the verses stretch from Genesis all the way to Revelation. We're talking about the entire biblical narrative here.
All right, so let's walk through the major themes that this book lays out. The very first one is this idea that the earth is totally fixed and completely unmoving.
Okay, so Scripture repeatedly describes the world as established, firm, and just
Unable to be moved. These verses are really presented as powerful evidence of a stable, anchored foundation for the whole world.
You'll see all these references to pillars and foundations and supports, imagery that really suggests something solid and stationary, and passages from Psalms, from Chronicles, and even 1 Samuel. They all echo this exact same idea. So the takeaway here is pretty simple, right? The earth is fixed. It's stable. It doesn't go anywhere.
All right, next, this book invites us to look up. So what does Scripture say about the heavens above us?
The central idea here is something called the firmament, and it's interpreted as a solid, physical dome that covers the earth. Genesis describes the exact moment this structure was created to separate the waters above from the waters below. And it's not just Genesis. Prophets like Ezekiel and Daniel, they also describe the heavens as something structured, something real, something that was intentionally placed. So in this view, the firmament isn't symbolic at all. It's understood as a literal dome, physically holding back waters above the entire world.
And it's inside this totally enclosed space that the sun and the moon move along their appointed paths. Okay, so if the earth is fixed under a dome, then what shape does Scripture actually describe? What are we looking at here?
Well, when the text mentions the four corners, this interpretation takes that wording literally, meaning the earth has actual edges or boundaries. And when Scripture talks about the circle of the earth, it's understood not as a sphere, but as a flat disk. Think of it more like a coin than a globe.
And when you start placing all these verses side by side, a very specific picture begins to form. A flat, enclosed world with clearly defined boundaries.
So when you combine all of these themes, you've got a fixed earth, a solid dome, a flat circle, you have pillars, foundations, corners, and moving lights up above. What you end up with is a complete alternative picture of the cosmos. Just look at these components: a fixed earth, a solid dome, a flat, circular shape, pillars, ends, moving lights. And what makes this interpretation so compelling, as this book points out, is just how incredibly consistent the language is across the entire Bible.
The language begins right there in Genesis and Exodus. It moves through the wisdom books like Psalms and Proverbs. It continues through the prophets, especially Isaiah, and it extends all the way into the New Testament, including the Gospels, 2 Peter, and even Revelation. And across all of these books, the descriptions they remain steady.
And all of it brings us to the final core question. How do we read these ancient texts in our modern scientific world?
So, we have a choice. Do we take these verses literally, exactly as they're written, or do we treat the passages as symbolic, kind of reshaping the words to fit what we already believe to be true?
And your answer to that really shapes how you approach Scripture as a whole. Because once you decide whether these passages are literal or metaphorical, that single decision influences how you interpret everything else.
And that's why this book invites you to explore the verses for yourself, to see them directly, plainly, with no filters.
So, if you want to see all 200 plus of these verses gathered together in one place, well, the entire collection is available right now.
The book is available right now on Amazon. Just search for the title, 200 Bible Verses Proving a Flat Stationary Earth, written by Sue West. Go ahead, read the verses for yourself, compare the passages, and just see what Scripture actually says.
Knock, knock. It's me. Before you go, don't forget to grab the book. Trust me, I've got a lot more to show you.